Today we are talking about Parsha Beshalach, which has many miracles in this parsha, but one of the greatest miracles is the splitting of the Red Sea. That's what we're going to talk about today. So what was the purpose of this difficult challenge at the Red Sea, and what was the solution? And in addition to that, what was the inner change that people needed to experience in order to come to true freedom? So we're going to talk about the outer challenge and the inner challenge. And this is really important. The people had spent 210 years in Egypt, with nearly 100 of those years being subjected by Pharaoh to cruel enslavement. And finally, God charged Moshe with leading them out of Egypt. So after nearly a year of Moshe and Aaron telling God's messages to Pharaoh to release the Jews, God, during this time, brought the 10 plagues upon the Egyptians, and the Jewish people, miraculously left, beginning on their journey to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah. A few days later, regretting that they let the people out, Pharaoh led his armed chariot forces to pursue them. So encamped around the Red Sea, the people found themselves trapped. They had the sea ahead of them, the Egyptian behind them, and there's a medrash that elaborates on this part of the story, giving insight into the mindset of our ancestors at that intense moment. So there they were. The sea was in front of them. The Egyptian army was behind them, and they felt stuck. They had no idea what to do. And the Medrash says that the people were divided into 4 camps, what to do. And each one had his own strongly held opinion about what should be done next. So this question was, what are we going to do now? There's a sea in front of us and a fierce Egyptian army behind us. And they felt that a solution was not possible. The first group said, let's all plunge into the sea. At least we'll die by our own hands, and we'll die free people. Mass suicide with dignity. That was the first group. The second group said, let's surrender. Let's give up and go back to Egypt. And being enslaved, they reasoned, was better than dying. The third group said, what have we got to lose? Let's fight the Egyptians. We'll fight to the last drop of blood. At least we'll have our self-respect. And the fourth group said, there's nothing we could do. So let's all pray. Let's turn to heaven. And Moshe rejected all 4 options. And he said, don't be afraid. So this is what the Chumash says. Don't be afraid. What he was really doing, and we'll see what he says next. He reassured them, you have nothing to fear but your own fear. And he continues, don't be afraid, stand firm and see the Lord's salvation that he will do for you today. For the way you have seen the Egyptians is only today, but you shall no longer continue to see them for eternity. The Lord will fight for you, but you shall remain silent. So the Medrash tells us that with these words that are in the Chumash, in the Parsha, Moshe is addressing each of the 4 groups. So to those who said, let's jump into the sea, Moshe said, stand firm and you will see God's salvation. So it's like, you don't have to do anything rash. Stay where you are. Stand firm and you will see God's salvation. To those who said, let's surrender and go back to Egypt, Moshe said, as you have seen Egypt these days, you shall not see them again forever. You're not going back to Egypt. To the group that suggested fighting the Egyptians, Moshe said, God will fight for you, but you will not fight. See, he's saying God is taking care of it, and you don't have to do any of these things. And to the fourth group, those who wanted to pray to God, Moshe said, you shall be silent. In other words, to have a trust in God, you don't need to pray now, right now. You just need to stand silent and see what God's going to do. So what then were the people supposed to do? The next verse says, speak to the children of Israel, God said to Moses, and let them travel. So the answer was move forward. What was their intention to be when they would move forward? The people had already been given their marching orders, and all that was required was to keep moving. When God appeared to Moshe at the burning bush, he said, when you take the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. That's Mount Sinai. So whether there is a sea in front of you, a massive army behind you, or both, keep moving toward your goal. This is really important. In other words, just keep going. Don't figure out what's going on. Just keep going forward. And the goal from day one had been Mount Sinai. From the beginning, the mission had been to receive the Torah and to become a godly people. God's message was keep progressing toward your goal. So what about the sea in front of you or the army behind you? That's God's problem. God will have to deal with it. This is really, really important, and really important for all of us, all the time. The difficulty lies in whether your focus is on the threat or on the goal. Very important. Where do we place our focus? On the threat, the things that we feel scared about, the things we feel we don't know how that's going to work out, or on the goal, where we're going and what it needs to be and what we know God wants. And we constantly face challenges, threats, and problems, and we may not know where to turn because each option seems to have a problem. And we always have these four voices within us. How can we go forward? There's a sea in front of you. Should I turn back? There's an army behind you. There seems to be no place to go. And the answer always remains the same. Move forward. Don't get distracted. Don't try to focus on combating negativity. Clearly define your goal. Mount Sinai, that's where they were going, or Mashiach. Where is the goal? Move forward regardless of the obstacles. And the solution to our work in the world is to keep going and leave the rest to God. In this Parsha, Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was leader of the tribe of Yehuda, when God said, go forward, he just started going forward. He strode into the sea. Just kept going, and the sea kept, going higher on him, higher, until it got to his nose. And then Hashem split the sea. So that's something that we have to know. We just keep going forward, even though we don't understand how this is going to work out. But then Hashem takes care of it. And that's something we have to know. We have to do our part and just keep going and leave the rest to God. We've spoken a number of times how there is no such thing for us as impossible, because if you stand there and say, but it's impossible, there's an army behind us and a sea in front of us, it's impossible. That way of thinking is saying, I'm the one who's in charge of everything, and we need to know that God is in charge. So we need to keep going, do our part, and trust that God has a way to handle it. And that we are just going forward, doing our part and trusting that God's on top of it. So this expresses that people need to not get into their fears, not feel like they're the only one that has to solve it, but they have to keep going forward. We have to keep going forward and trust that God's got it all figured out. But to understand this even more so, what was the inner experience that was to be learned in this challenge at the sea? In other words, God did this for a reason. God was leaving the Jews with an opportunity to go to a deeper place in themselves. What was it? We understand that they had to overcome their fears on the outside to just go forward. But what was to be learned here? So let's talk about the metaphor of what is the sea and what is the dry land. So the ocean is full of creatures that are hidden from our view. And for this reason, the Kabbalists use the sea as a metaphor for the concealed worlds. What does it mean, the concealed worlds? There are spiritual worlds that are full of spiritual life, angels, souls, energy, divine light, but they're concealed from our sight. Dry land, by contrast, is a metaphor for reality as we perceive it. So if something is tangible enough to be experienced by our five senses, then it is in the realm of dry land. So if we can see it, we can feel it, if we can hear it, if it's something that comes into our consciousness, then this is called dry land. But if it's a spiritual reality that can't be perceived with the naked eye, it is in the concealed world of the sea. So what is kind of physical and we are aware of is called dry land because it's right here to be seen. What's more hidden under or above our consciousness, or it's out there, it's something that we don't see, then this is called the concealed world of the sea. And this explains the spiritual significance of the story of the splitting of the sea. When the children of Israel left Egypt, they were pursued by Pharaoh and the Egyptians and were trapped at the Red Sea. Miraculously, the sea split before them. So when Nachshon ben Aminadab, now followed by the rest of the people, went into the sea, they went into the sea kept rising, the sea was there. And then when Nachshon ben Aminadab and the people were getting to where, how would they get through? The sea split. This is God did this. God also told Moshe to put his staff down. So this was a miracle. And now the sea split and there was dry land for them to walk on. And they traveled on dry land in the midst of the sea. So they're walking on dry land with waters split to the side, to the right of them, to the left of them, and they're walking on the dry land. This is a paradox because we're saying that the dry land represents what you can experience physically. And the sea represents what you can't see. But there they were on dry land in the middle of the sea. So they were having an experience that was experiencing what is beyond nature completely, and everything became part of their awareness. Now, the Egyptians followed. The Jews were walking through, and then the Jews came through, and the waters of the sea came crashing down on the Egyptians, drowning them. Now, when we look at a map, we see that the Jewish people were on their way from Egypt to Mount Sinai, and the Red Sea was out of the way. The Jewish people did not cross the sea. They went into it and they emerged from the sea on the same side they entered, making a U-turn. So what was the purpose of the splitting of the Red Sea if there was something they didn't really need to do to get there? And the answer is that in order for the people to receive the Torah, they first needed to experience the splitting of the sea. So we need to understand what on the inside is the splitting of the sea, and why did the people need to have this experience before they could come to Mount Sinai. So when we're saying that the sea represents that which is concealed, what it means is that it represents the divine energy within every created being. The sea, that's the inner energy. The sea represents the spark of holiness that is at the core of every creation. So it's representing what's on the inside. When the sea split, when the waters were transformed into dry land, then the hidden core within every creation was revealed. As the seas split, the concealment of the world was open. What does it mean that it's showing the hidden core of everything? The inner core of us and of everything, the inner core is God. We are connected into God. And when the concealment of the world was open, it exposed the truth of the oneness of God. And we are heading for that. That is what's going to happen, that people will know that the innerness of every creation, the hidden core, is connected into God, somehow, for everything in its own way. So exposing the truth of the oneness of God inside ourselves and in everything was what needed to happen. And as the sea split, each and every individual experienced a divine revelation. So they were able to experience God in a deep way. And the Talmud teaches us, because it says, the people sang a song, Az Yasher Moshe, and they sang together. And what were they talking about? The experience that they had in the Red Sea. And one of the things it says is a maidservant, which means somebody who wasn't particularly educated or knowledgeable, a regular kind of person, at the sea was able to see what the prophet Ezekiel was unable to see. Now, Ezekiel, Yechezkel, the prophet, had the deepest prophecies of Kabbalah. But when they walked across the river, even somebody simple could see it, could see the godliness in a way that a major Kabbalistic, if not the major Kabbalistic prophet, couldn't see. So there was a revelation of the innerness, revealing the essence of everything that could be experienced and its connection into God. Now, when we received the Torah at Sinai, okay, so there they go. They go through the Red Sea. They have this experience of godliness that was unlike anything that they had had before. And now they're ready to go to receive the Torah. Because now they have this awareness of the innerness of everything, that there is a concealed, and the concealed opened. Obviously, when the sea came back together after they crossed the Red Sea, that level of revelation stopped, but it had changed them. It had changed them forever. When they received the Torah at Sinai, the people were charged with the mission to connect the physical and the spiritual, the mundane and the holy, the earthly and the divine. But how was that even possible? They seem to be polar opposites. When we utilize something that's physical for the service of God, we are connecting that physical thing to God. But now we know that the physical isn't just physical, that the physical has an inner essence that we can connect to the essential inner essence, which is God. And this we learn at the splitting of the sea, because the splitting of the sea explains how it could be that we're connecting what seems like polar opposites. Before God could command the people to connect the physical and the spiritual, they first had to experience the splitting of the sea, the tearing open of the concealment. They had to understand that the hidden core of all creation is the Creator. They had to realize that in truth, the physical is nothing more than concealed spirituality. So everything in the world is concealed spirituality. And when we do the mitzvot of the Torah, we are connecting the concealed spirituality with its source. So this is something that we all want to do. Every creation craves to be united with its divine source. To split the sea in the world around us, we have to first split our own sea. We have to first expose the hidden reality of our soul. And then we discover that the world around us is disguising a deeper truth, a truth waiting to be revealed. When we spoke about the physical situation at the sea, what happened was that people became afraid. That's on the outside, because they weren't connected to their own inside. As finite beings, we tend to see things in black and white. We often define ourselves in terms of what we can do and what we can't do. We tell ourselves that there are certain things that we're capable of doing, that we're good at, and we're comfortable striving for. And then there are things that we believe to be beyond our grasp, the things that are inconsistent with our nature, ability, and inclination. And we have a long list of things that we tell ourselves we can't accomplish. And that's how the people felt when they saw the sea in front of them and the Egyptian army behind them. So this definition of themselves, and we all understand this self-definition, I don't know how to do it, this is so hard, this is impossible, I don't know how to relate to these people, I don't know how to connect in an inner way. I don't know how I'm going to manage this. It's beyond me. And we say that all the time, often. First of all, we have to know it's beyond me. God is in charge. Second of all, as we learned, we have to keep going. Don't be afraid that you won't make it work out. Keep going and keep moving forward. And then the Torah teaches us that as the sea split, as the hidden world came to light, the core of the soul was also unveiled. And at that moment of revelation, the Jewish people realized that the soul is beyond definition. So this picture of who we think we are is not who we are. Yes, we do have certain talents and certain qualities, but to limit ourselves to that picture is not at all the truth. And then the sea split. They kept going. They didn't know how this was going to work out, but Moshe says, God's going to take care of it. You just keep moving forward. And when they realized that the soul is beyond definition, that changed their own. They let go of the superficial definitions of who they were. And they realized that they could express themselves in opposite ways. They could be introverts as well as extroverts. A lot of people say, I don't know if I should go there. I'm so shy. You don't have to think of yourself that way. Just go forward. Don't define yourself as introvert or extrovert, because you can be both. Scholars as well as people of action. It doesn't have to be opposite. We can learn whatever we learn of Torah and take whatever action we can take. But we don't have to think of ourselves as either or, because that stops people from doing what we need to do. And it talked about that when the people split, it says the sea of the walls were on the right and the sea of the walls were on the left. Both the right side and the left side of the walls of the sea were protective walls. Those walls on the sea made space for us to go through. The center line, very important, going all the way through. And so we have to know we could be both. And as we walk through the dry land and we see that nothing is impossible, nothing is impossible. A soul is not limited to a single form of expression. We're much deeper than who we think we are. And we are multifaceted because the soul is coming from connection with God and who we are meant to be. As soon as we reveal our essence, there's nothing we can't achieve. The stories of the Torah are not just stories about the past. They are the stories of our lives. The Israelites watched the sea split and saw their mortal enemies washed ashore. Their freedom from Egyptian bondage was finally assured. They saw the awesome hand of God and they believed. This is very, very important, to believe that God is the one who's guiding us, but also supporting us. And when we go forward, the soul awakens our whole being, and we know that we can progress toward our soul, toward our goal. That we could, when we just go forward, our soul kicks in. We awaken our soul, and we progress toward our goal, knowing that the one God is the true reality. And that one is bringing us to our divine purpose. So when we go forward, sometimes we don't see how this is going to work out because it's in the physical world. But we have to believe beyond the physical world. We have to just say, my part is to keep going forward. That's my job. I need to go forward. I'm going forward. And God is with me, and God's going to take care of this. But I have to do my part. And even when it's clear that I succeed, and my soul is saying to me, don't limit yourself. Why do you think you can't do this? What do you mean you can't talk to her? You can talk. Talk when you're ready to talk. Just go forward and do what you need to do. Don't scare yourself and say, I can't, because our soul powers are much more than what we think. And then when we accomplish what we're doing, then we see really that God is the one who did it, and that our soul is connected into God. And ultimately, the aim is for us to completely know and believe that we're connected into God. In order to achieve the purpose of our creation, we have to experience the three most fundamental events of Jewish history: the Exodus, going out of Egypt, the splitting of the Red Sea, and the giving of the Torah. Each of these we have to experience: the Exodus, the splitting of the sea, and the giving of the Torah. It says in the Torah, each and every day, we have the opportunity to escape our Egypt. What does it mean to escape our Egypt? To escape the enslavement to our perceived limitations. That's the slavery. When we think we can't and it's too hard, to escape that, to escape our own personal Egypt, which tries to hold us down and enslave us. So each and every day, we can escape that and say, I'm going forward. I'm doing it. It's not, can I do it? I'm doing it. I'm going forward. And not to have limited pictures of who we are and what we can do. Just keep going forward. Each and every day, we receive the Torah at Sinai, which empowers us to connect creation to its creator. So when we take the cup, a created cup, tea in it, and we say a blessing, and we drink it, we're connecting it above. So what we're doing is we're revealing the hidden godly core of the physical. So we utilize the physical world to serve God. But to connect creation to its creator, we must first reveal the inner core of our own soul. We must split our own sea, reveal our hidden truth, and discover that our essence is connected to God and is actually limitless. We're not a thing out here, a physical thing. We are souls that are connected into God, coming from God, that come into and enliven bodies. And we have to know to reveal the hidden spark of infinity within our souls. So we can't underestimate ourselves and look at ourselves as just physical, but that we have godliness inside of us, and revealing that spark of infinity that's in our souls, that is essential, because then there is no separation between who we are and the ability to accomplish our purpose in the world. Obstacles are not interruptions to the journey. They are the journey. We need to keep marching toward the promised land. Every challenge along the way will give us a deeper insight and renewed power. So when we handle the challenge by going forward and not scaring ourselves and knowing that we have souls connected into God and that God is taking care of everything, even as we do our part, then what happens is that we see deeper and we have more insight. We need to rise above our perceived limitations and know that God is giving us the power to succeed. Sometimes the situation doesn't look good, but we need to know that it comes from a level that's not being revealed on our earthly plane. So sometimes God gives us situations that we can't understand. This seems so difficult. What can we do? And we need to have trust, bitachon, believing that we will receive good that can be recognized as good. So God knows what he's doing. And sometimes we really don't get it. We don't understand why this is called good. But we have to have trust that God will show us and reveal to us what the real good is. We need to step beyond the picture of ourselves because that enslaves us. So we need to step beyond that picture. Stop thinking of ourselves in ways that are limited and limiting. When we leave our perceived limitations and commit to living with God's will, okay, God, whatever it is that you want, that's what I'm ready to do, then our inner self is revealed. So making that commitment, God, whatever it is that you want, that's what I'm going to do. So when we say, I'm not eating meat and milk together because you don't want me to. I'm going to keep Shabbat, even though my friends, they're out there having a party at the beach on Friday afternoon. I'm not doing that. I'm doing what you want me to do. I'm committing to living with your will. Then what happens is our inner self is revealed. Our soul opens. And then we work to fulfill our mission with energy and vitality because we know that we have a soul purpose. We work with our potentials and proceed on our initiative. We say, I know that this is something that I'm supposed to do. I'm going to go forward and do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how this is going to work out. I can't even imagine it. But you know what? If this is something that I know it's for me to do, I'm going to stop thinking of myself in limiting ways. That's the slavery of Egypt. I'm just going to keep going forward. And my soul is going to come through and help me to realize that there's a lot more to this than I can see. And I'm just going to do it. I am going to do my part. And I'm going to do it with energy and vitality. And then what happens is that I'm going to be able to do it. And I am doing it. And I'm moving forward. And then when we do this, we know that as we work with our own power, it's really God who achieves everything. God is the one who's really doing it. I have to do my part. I'm going forward. God's going to open the soul powers that connect into God, and then God's going to take care of it. But I have to keep moving forward and let my soul come through. So the aim is to begin to bring the world closer to the revelation of the Torah's inner secrets, which will become more and more available in the era of redemption, when we are going to see that all reality is really God. We just have to live with faith, trusting that as we go forward, God will split our sea and bring us through to fulfill God's purpose for us now and for the world. So let's move forward, do our part, trust in God, watch the revelation of the hidden as it's becoming more and more obvious in this time, and make God's reality be revealed now with Mashiach, and may we accomplish what we're here to accomplish with joy.